well over a 1 key on Hard Hydra on auto. Here's how we did it. Almost 29 million. And we've got Valkyrie, Mithrala, Big Un, Lydia, Shamael, and Umbral Enchantress. And I'll go over all their skills and everything. I'll also go over, their masteries and all the other stuff that you'll need to know at the end, including what order I allowed their attacks to go and what attacks I didn't allow them to use at all. All right, now we'll show a little bit of the footage here. What we had going on was Umbral Enchantress blocking all debuffs. So because we didn't have the Head of Decay to wipe that off, she is able to keep that up all the time. The Head of Decay, I think, is actually the worst head to have up for this formation. But those block debuffs are not only going to keep the Head of Mischief at bay, but they're also going to keep the Poison Cloud from, being a hindrance on the amount of damage that we're going to do, and keep us from landing a lot of the debuffs that we want to land, since even Umbral Enchantress, Big Un, and Lydia and things like that, they aren't placing the debuffs, they're actually hitting. And if they weak hit, they're not going to place those debuffs. Now, of course, we've got Inquisitor Shamael in here. I think any auto team that's going to survive the Head of Torment is probably going to have that. Unless you're going for like really quick damage, like some people have crazy Trundas and things like that. So now I've got Mithrala in there. She is basically our backup shield. She is also giving us strengthen. Now, what Inquisitor Shamael is going to do is, of course, wipe off all of the fears and the true fears that the Head of Torment is trying to put on us. And that is going to allow him to take turns. And when he does take those turns, it's very busted. He's speeding up our leader. And the person that we have in the leader position is Valkyrie. Valkyrie is going to put up big shields, and I mean really big shields. And she's also going to be putting up counterattack. That counterattack is going to be huge for the damage that we're going to do. And we don't have to worry about the stuff being stolen, or at least not, stolen over to the enemy heads, because of Umbral Enchantress. She's going to be placing that, block debuffs like we said. So, if they do steal it, they're at least not getting to pass it around to the other heads, and it's not going to go on the Head of Mischief. It does happen a couple times, but we do survive it. It's okay. This is a really strong team. Now, because we've got that counterattack out there, I wanted a champion that's going to do a lot of damage using AoE. So I picked Big Un. He's got AoE on every single skill. But most importantly, he's got AoE on his A1. So as long as the first hit is directed at a head that he won't weak hit to, then he's going to AoE all the rest of the heads. Next up, we've got Lydia. Lydia's bringing defense down and weaken. So weaken's a 25% increase to the damage we're doing. And defense down, of course, is taking 60% of their defense away from them. So that's really huge. She's going to be doing that. She's also going to be speeding us up, and she also places strengthen as well. So we're going to have strengthen up pretty much the entire fight between her and Mithrala. So the last one is Mithrala. She, I would say, is the least important one out of this group. However, she is placing Hex out there. And that does come in handy in a situation like this. We're actually going to redirect to that head and, attack the Head of Mischief, because we want that head gone if we can. But we really don't use that very much, so it's really not, I would say, a key part of this. I just wanted it there in case that head swallowed somebody. We would have an easy way to get it back out. Of course, Poison Cloud's a big deal. That's why we're blocking it. The other one to watch out for is the Head of Wrath. The Head of Wrath hits really hard. So if you don't build your team extremely tanky when the Head of Wrath's around, that can be a huge problem. You either need to down it really quickly, or you need to, be able to withstand those hits. So that's why we have these giant shields from Valkyrie. We've got extra shields from Mithrala when we need it. And that is, what's keeping us alive. Shamael's built okay. Umbral's built okay. Big Un's built okay as far as being able to take a hit, but they're not built super strong. So it's important that we have all that sustain. So here it is. I don't want to show you this entire run. Let me kind of zoom through it a little bit. We can kind of watch it in fast motion as we go here. So we got the Head of Torment back, but he wasn't up the entire fight. So that wasn't, that wasn't the key reason. That wasn't the only reason we were able to do this. And he does keep dying. So here's the point where they actually have the counterattacks up. And this, you know, this isn't a good position to be in, because every time Big Un hits with his AoEs, we're going to be getting hit back. But again, they're built sturdy. We've got all those shields and things like that. So they are able to survive this. The other thing about this comp, we don't have any revivers. Had somebody gone down, it would mean a wipe at that point, or at least it would mean much reduced damage. Not a big deal. We still scored a bunch after that because, again, she's the least important one that we have. And to be honest, Lydia actually got down pretty low. She was pretty low there. And, you know, but then Valkyrie comes back in with those shields, which is just huge. So, all right, so fast forwarding again, we're getting towards the later part of the fight here. So the other important thing about Big Un doing AoE hits is that, you know, it helps us get people back out once they've been swallowed. But even though he's tanky, we're still going to take him down pretty easily. We targeted that head, and then on top of that, Big Un is hitting with the AoE. So we are taking care of him pretty easily to get our guy back out. The worst case scenario, you end up getting swallowed and then the poison cloud's up. There's really no way in this team to deal with poison cloud if you aren't blocking the debuffs. We don't have any burn out there at all. So this is kind of a crazy comp. No burn, no revive. Here we lost Shamael. He's not too important at the moment because we don't have the Head of Torment out there. The cool part about this comp, this is at, it's going to be around 30 minutes when it's completely done. But we're going to be doing almost 30 million damage, and we're doing it in, you know, about that 30-minute time period. A lot of these comps that score really high are, you know, pushing an hour, something like that. So it's good that the turn count isn't at like 160 like some of the comps that I've come up with. And the fact that it's on auto meant I was just watching TV and I was able to just, you know, peek down. And if something like this happened where somebody got swallowed, I would just, you know, redirect the targeting at that point. Yep, the swallow happened there. So this is pretty much the end. We score another like 1.5 million. Our main damage dealer's down. Our second main damage dealer is probably Shamael. He's down as well. So I'm going to skip ahead. I'll show you the result again, and then we'll start getting into how we did this, and then finally like the masteries and things like that. So again, here was our final total, 28.97 million. I really wanted that 0.03 million. Would have made it a nice round number for me. Okay, live real quick. Let's see what we got. All right, nothing crazy so far. And a couple legendary pieces here. But as far as stone skin goes, I think it was just kind of an okay pull. We'll see. Okay, here it is, the one I marked Team 7. So the first thing that's important to note is that we've got Valkyrie in the lead position because we want her to have that shield up and we want her to have that counterattack up as much as possible. So, and just to be on the safe side, I put Valkyrie's A2 as the priority. So make sure she uses that as often as possible. And then for Mithrala, I just went and said, use the Hex first and then use your shield second. So the Hex, of course, comes along with increased defense and increased attack. So that was an important one. We put the increased defense out there. And then increased attack, of course, also, you know, increases the amount of damage Big Un is going to do. And then we've got Brimming Silex, her strengthen and shield buff, going as the second priority. Then we go to Big Un, our main damage dealer. His strongest attack is his A3. This one is the one that also does decreased speed. So he's hitting twice with it. So he does a ton of damage, but he's also putting decreased speed out there, which really helps us out a lot. Keeps some of the heads from going as fast, gets them out of their turn order, things like that. Then I put this one as number 2. I'm not sure what's best. I should really look into that, whether it's better to use this or not use this, but he does have a chance of putting decreased accuracy out there. And of course, he's not going to stun anyone there. And then his A1 is also huge. It attacks one enemy and then all enemies, and it hits nice and hard as well. So He is a complete beast in Hydra. I don't think they talk about him too much, just because there's other, max HP champions and stuff out there. But if you're doing counterattack, I really can't imagine a better champion. I'm not sure anybody else does AoE on all skills and hits hard on all of them, and also brings, decreased speed and decreased accuracy. So he's pretty huge. Next, of course, is Lydia. We just prioritized her A2 because we want that increase or that decreased defense and that weaken out there as much as possible. We also want to speed up our team and get that strengthen out. Then Shamael, it's interesting. All we use is his A1. And the reason why is we're usually targeting the Head of Torment, and we don't want that head to die too quickly. So there's no reason to be putting his Cow of Horrors, which is a really weird name. There's really no reason to be using that move. I'd rather he just be hitting as weak sauce as possible, but we do have him, and I'll show it to you later. We do have him in a poison set, and that's very important. Now, the reason the poison set is important is when he's attacking the Head of Torment, he's going to be putting poisons on it, which makes it harder to land other debuffs on the Head of Torment. If possible, and it doesn't happen much when we're autoing, but if possible, we would rather not have decreased defense or weaken on that head at all. Anything that keeps it alive as much as possible, all the better, including the block buffs. It's okay to get buffs on the Head of Torment as long as it's not buffs like counterattack and stuff like that. But the Ally Protect helps keep it alive longer and other things like that. So we would rather see the poison bar fill up than have it be other things like decreased defense and weaken. And this one's really important. Umbral Enchantress, we block out her A3. Her A3 will kill your team. It does put unkillable on her, which would be good, but and provoke, of course, does nothing. But this block active skills you see here, she actually puts that on herself. Nothing in this kit is going to do anything to the Hydra Heads, but she's going to block her own active skills, and then she's not going to be able to put block buffs out there. So it's really important that you block out her A3. And then on her A2, it is where she's placing the block buff. She does it on all enemies, and she does it for 3 turns. 3 turns is huge. She's the only one in the game that does block buffs for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. So she's definitely best in class when it comes to block buffs. All right, so that's the turn order. First, I'm going to go over her masteries. These are them here, so you can take a little screenshot of this if you want to. But to get into detail, I won't share everything. We just went down all the shield ones that we could down, and we have the extending buffs. This is the most important one, of course. Now, I did not redo her masteries for this. This was from an old arena build where I was using Gerp Tuck and things like that. But the important thing is we went down to War Master, and we took as much damage as we could along the way. We've got the vampiric one in here. So that's her masteries. And then Valkyrie's stats and sets here. She's in a Guardian set. Guardian absorbs 10% of all the damage dealt to the ally champions, and she takes that instead, sort of, and then she heals by 10% every turn. Then I topped it off with resilience just to get some extra defense and some extra HP. To be honest, defense set would be even better for this, but I had better gear in the resilience. I didn't do anything super special for her accessories. And then her actual stats, the only important sustain one is the 7,420 defense. The higher you can get that, the bigger the shield she's going to have. So you might as well do it. Her speed's pretty slow, but we're speeding her up with Shamael. And then every time the enemy gets a buff, she gets extra turn meter. So that helps speed her up as well. Her crit rate could be a lot better. It's at 64%, but I really wanted to focus on the defense in her build. Crit damage is nothing, resist is nothing, and her accuracy, I really didn't want a ton of accuracy because she's going to go trying to manipulate turn meter. I think that affects the heads, so I don't even bother. 180 hopefully won't be doing that too often to them. So that should be the important stuff about Valkyrie. Let's move on to Big Un. He's tons of fun. Clearly named after Big Pun the Rapper, one of my favorites of all time. We've got him in Savage and Cruel. We just want him to hit, as hard as we can. So that gives us, 30% of mitigating defense. So we've got him over 100% crit rate. We've got him at 238 on the crit damage. He's really not that sustainable. He's like 36,000 health and 2,000 defense. But that's where those shields come in from Valkyrie, and those just being on there pretty much the whole time means almost all the damage is going through the shields. And then we've got him at a decent enough accuracy level. This won't be enough for Brutal. That's one of the reasons I'm not really taking on Brutal much right now. I have to rebuild a lot of champions and give them more accuracy. I was, specifically not giving them too much accuracy so I could put other stats on them, but I might have to lower that crit damage a little or lower that speed or something to get some more of the accuracy on this champion. And then to go to his masteries, here they are if you need to take a screenshot. The most important ones here on the right side, we get the turn meter for every debuff that he casts. So this is going to help him go a little faster. So 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a debuff cast by this champion is removed or expires. So this will help him keep up with the heads, even though he's not incredibly fast. And then I've got him in Lore of Steel. I want as much damage as possible. So extra 15% from that Cruel set comes in handy here. Also, if I ever need to stick him in like a speed set for some reason, it'll help with that as well. Yep, Evil Eye doesn't matter, but then I've got him in Master Hexer. So when he does place, especially that decreased speed, I would like it to go on for 3 turns as often as possible. So 30% chance, if he does land it, say, on all the heads, he's likely to increase it on at least one of them. This is a very good move for people who are putting a lot of debuffs out there. All right, so over here on the offense tree, nothing's that important other than War Master. If you do nothing else, pick War Master. However, it's not the end of the world if you use him a lot in Arena and you want to have Helm Smasher on him, that's fine too. But War Master is going to do 4% of damage. Extra 4% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about giant HP pools, it really adds up. The rest of them, to be honest, just try to get extra damage. This isn't even a build for Hydra, so you don't have to copy this or anything. All right, Mithrala. Here's her masteries again if you need to take a screenshot. And also, the one on the left-hand side, again, War Master is the only really important one. Just to get as much damage out of her as possible. For her, the support tree is the key. The important ones are the 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10%. Again, the same we used with Big Un. Whenever a debuff expires, and then I did the same thing on the side. So she's just putting buffs and debuffs out constantly. So this is helping her just take turns all the time. We did take this one shield one. I even had to use gems to undo this. I originally went down and took all the shield masteries, but I did end up skipping Healing Savior because it's so important to get that extra turn meter for her. Then I used Lore of Steel to get extra stats where I could. Master Hexer again, just like Big Un. And then again, the same thing over here, Lasting Gifts. So what Master Hexer does for debuffs, Lasting Gifts does for buffs. So because of her passive where she gains resistance whenever she gets accuracy, I went as high as I could with the accuracy while still hitting the stats that I wanted to hit. So I put her in Perception. That way I didn't have to focus on the accuracy. I could focus on other things like speed, getting her over that 240 threshold, things like that. And I've got nothing special in her accessories, but we got her nice and high on HP. That's what she bases her shields on. They aren't as big as Valkyrie's, but they're still pretty big. So 74,000 HP, got her at about 3,000 defense over the 240 threshold on speed. And then the rest don't matter until you get down to accuracy. The resistance is kind of nice. I didn't focus on resistance at all, but this is going to place resistance on top of the accuracy as well. So her resistance would end up being like, 611 or whatever this is. So when she's out there fighting, plus the masteries that are out there as well. Next up is Umbral Enchantress. I have not changed her build in, I have no idea how long. This has been probably 2 years, something like that. She's doing one job. There's only one job that matters here, and that is to put block buffs out there. So as long as her accuracy is high enough, I just don't care. So I've just got, nothing but kind of crap sets on her. Here are her masteries if you need to take a screenshot. These are not super important. I did redo her masteries during that first week of Hydra when Inquisitor Shamael was like boosting every single person and taking 1,000 turns. He's still kind of doing that, but not nearly to the level that he was. This isn't so important anymore, but this is what I've got. And on the offense tree, the only important one really is War Master. So Anything else, do whatever you want, but make sure you pick War Master so you can just, you know, do as much damage as you can with her. So for her gear, I didn't do anything special. This is all just to get her enough accuracy to be over 400, and the rest didn't really matter. And again, nothing special in the accessories. Her total stats, the important one is 405. The other important one, I would like to see this over 240. I did put her a decent amount of defense at 3,700 and, you know, 40,000 HP. So she survives just fine as long as Valkyrie's putting the shields out there. And the important part is she can place those block buffs on. And back to her masteries quick, I think really the best mastery you could put on her is Master Hexer. This way, if she's not keeping up the way she should, those are going to stay on a little longer. So that one could be really good, or if you needed extra accuracy, things like that. Lastly, the man of the hour, and I just realized I stole his banner and never put it back on him. So he's actually missing his banner, but that's okay. The poisons that he's putting out there are from his set, and those do not require accuracy at all. So don't think you need accuracy when you're using sets. They have a set percentage to land, and you do not have to beat any kind of a resistance check to do so. They're immune to resistance and they're immune to accuracy. So what we're talking about here, the only non-broken set he has is a 75% chance to place a 2.5% poison debuff. This is only super important. It does add some damage, of course, but poison damage is nerfed against Hydra, so it's not doing the normal amount of damage that it does. What it is doing is filling up the debuff bar of the Head of Torment, so hopefully other debuffs don't go on that head. His masteries are not really set up for this. The important ones here are the extra 5% chance from skills and artifacts to land the debuffs. So in this case, you know, putting those poisons out there goes from a 75% chance to an 80% chance. So that's a good one. And I really don't think Master Hexer matters in this. Now with Arcane Celerity, this is either really important or it's not important at all. So do the debuffs that you place with your artifact sets actually matter when it comes to this mastery? If they don't, then this one is really kind of worthless. But if they do, this is going to help speed him up so he can take more turns and put more poisons out there on the head. And then again, on the offense tree, the only really important one is the War Master. On to his actual stats. So again, it was mainly just important to have the poison set on him. I didn't want a lot of crit rate. I really don't want him critting because I don't want him taking down the Head of Torment too fast. I've got him at 235 speed. This isn't too important. A lot of what he does is passives. So when you attack the Head of Torment, he automatically counterattacks. That's his main reason for being here. But I've got decent HP on him and decent defense. And again, the rest just don't matter. Lastly, we're going to go over the amount of damage that everyone did. And really, it was pretty evenly spread among a lot of them. So really, nobody was below 3 million. And that's because I had War Master on literally everybody. Umbral Enchantress did about 3 million. So did Mithrala. Then Shamael got almost 4 million. Valkyrie got 4.5. Lydia did pretty well with 5 million. She's kind of a hybrid semi attack build. She does pretty well in that sense. So she did 5 million, and then Big Un did almost 9 million. So it added up together to a pretty decent amount. So again, Big Un bringing in the damage, but also bringing that slow out there. So that was pretty huge. Nobody else really shined as far as damage goes, but they all did decently well. So I'm Zak Gacha back, and I hope this helped you out.